Father in heaven, hallowed be thy holy name. Lord Jesus, come be with us today. Come guide us, lead us, and grant our commissioners wisdom in the decisions they need to make. Satan, as to you, get out. Get out of our courthouse, out of our county, out of our state, and out of our country. You're not wanted. You're not needed. We choose to follow the guiding light of our Savior, Jesus Christ. Again, Father, we thank you for the blessings that you bestow upon us. We thank you for the comfort that you've given our friends and neighbors who have been stricken with the flooding and the natural disasters recently. Lord, please continue to be with us. I offer this prayer today in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Tina, administrative business.
In your packet, there's an email from KAC asking if you have anything that you want to include on the legislative policy. So if you have something, if you can either let them know or let me know, that would be great.
Are you needing to turn in registrations already?
I have already turned in a registration for Kent, for you and Diane, because
Okay.
you told me a few weeks ago.
Okay.
I haven't, yeah, we can talk later, Randy, as far as what you think you wanted to.
So Wichita, yeah, first time. For a while.
Okay, I have the minutes of July 15th.
Okay, had time to review the minutes of July 15th.
Make a motion to approve unless there's.
Okay, motion been made to approve the July 15th minutes. I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, then we have the minutes of July 18th.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the July 18th minutes.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
And we have some supplements just for review.
Change order, there isn't any second signatures required on the change orders?
No, I believe it's all, they're just supplements. So there are for the tax roll that hasn't been generated yet. We do have one early check.
Good check. Amount of $2,577.95 to Arliss Collision Specialist on the sheriff's vehicle repair.
I have some salary sheets.
Okay, first salary sheet, Travis Wilson, Sheriff's Department, promoted to sergeant from 1866 to 1881. Communications, Stephanie Davis, new 911 systems operator, 6-month and 1-year raise, $14.34. And Joshua Hausman, transfer station, transferring road and bridge to the transfer station as equipment operator 2, from 2822 to 2631, which is a decrease in salary.
Thank you. I did give you an email that I received this morning and a sample letter, and it's requesting a letter of support for the project that is getting ready to be pursued on Susan Mayo's property. But the letter that was sent, the example letter that was sent, I don't think is the right one. I have responded back to the individual that sent it, but I haven't heard back. So that was all this morning. So I did draft an alternate letter. I'm not sure if it's includes everything that she needs. So I just thought I would let you consider that, see if it's something you would like to do today, or if you're more interested in maybe next week potentially doing that.
You had a chance to see that yet, Randy?
No, I read the letter. This was the one you did?
Yeah,
Okay.
but I just did it this morning.
So do you want to all take time to review that and we'll talk about it next week, or then we can act on it? It's just a letter in support of this Flint Hills Counterpoint project, which is a multi-year experience which includes collaborative musical performance and audio-visual film composition for specific multimedia audiences to experience interpretation of sensory field recordings taken from the prospective land, flora, and fauna that are witness to Central Kansas reclamation process in collaboration with Kansas Forest Service improvements to boost the overall health and quality of Kansas woodlands and prairies.
I believe her residence is the one I was speaking of, north of Peabody.
Yeah, I attended their presentation on Friday, and I was under the impression that Anthony Roy was gonna be here this morning to elaborate a little bit on it. Apparently not, but, as far as signing, it's just, like Tina said, just a support letter. She's, trying to get a grant, and just is asking for the support letter.
Okay.
So I have no problem signing either one of them. I don't know what
Well,
the two
the
is,
one,
but.
the one that she sent is, it's from City of Mays. It's not, it doesn't have anything really to do with Marion County that I could see in there. I mean, I put it on the table there for you to read, but it doesn't make sense, I think, for this board to sign that letter.
Yeah.
I did, like I said, I drafted the other one. You're welcome to, if it's acceptable, sign it, and then I can check with her, and if there's something that is missing, we could do a different one.
Yeah.
Or you could wait till next week.
Well, I think we should, if it suits the board, sign it, and look at, that way they wouldn't hold them up. I know they're planning to submit for the grant here very quickly, but it's whatever. And like I say, if there's a problem with it, they can bring it back to us and resubmit, but.
You want to make a motion to support the Marion County called Flint Hills Counterpoint?
Yes, I sure will make a motion to support the Marion County Flint Hills Counterpoint. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yes, I sure will.
I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, that's all I have for administrative.
Okay.
May I interject one? I'd like to make a little bit of an adjustment on the agenda, if at all possible. I noticed that at 9:30, the county treasurer is on there. She usually doesn't take much time at all. And there is a little extra spot there, or wherever. But I do have some information that I'd like to discuss with the commission based on what Randy brought up last week. So I just need a couple minutes for a little discussion there.
So you want to put that in between?
Wherever it fits. I just seen the agenda and seen that might be an appropriate place, but I'm not saying necessarily there, but just someplace.
Okay, and that agenda item would be in regard to what?
What Randy brought up yesterday, future wind
Oh,
Monday,
future.
future wind turbines, yes. Thank you.
So do we need to make a motion to add to the agenda? I think so, don't we?
It doesn't hurt to do that.
Okay.
Generally, I don't know if that you
Okay.
have, but it would probably be good
Okay.
practice.
So, you wanna
I'll make a motion to add, do I need to say 15 minutes, or is the slotted time available to add a discussion for future wind turbines on today's agenda?
Second.
Okay, moved in second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Road Bridge, Bryce?
All right, morning everyone.
Morning.
First two things that I have on the agenda were, we received two bids, found out we actually had one bid that was sent to Bev's old email account on the trailer bid, and then we got another one from I think it was Salina or Wichita. Okay, Salina. Anyway, this is for a trailer for the sign department. Basically start moving all of our signs around like we did. We found out that trailer just isn't big enough. It's like a, I don't know, 5x8, 5x10. So this trailer here would give us a lot more room. We could set things up on it permanently, so we could just hook onto the trailer and go. The two bids were from Joe's Manufacturing and K4 Trailer Sales. I guess I'd like to recommend that we get the one from Joe's Trailer, which was 5,500 and whatever it was. So, and it meets all the specifications that we asked for.
And what was your plan then to do with the old trailer, just use it as
Yeah,
needed
just
as well?
yeah, but it's like I say, it's just not big enough to. The one we had specified actually has a place in between the fender wells. We can put sandbags and stuff like that. Plus, this one's a 2-axle trailer. The other one's just a one.
I see.
just not heavy enough.
These are both 22-foot trailers?
Yes.
Okay. Got two bids. First one from Jost Manufacturing, and they're both identical trailers.
Actually, the one from K4 is over the specified amount, but the axles and everything else, but we just what Jost furnished met our specifications, so.
Okay. Jost Fabricating, 5,556, and K4 Trailer Sales out of Salina in the amount of 69,8816. So Jost Fabricating is the low bid on that. I guess, have you brought that up before, that we were needing to do something like that?
Yes.
Okay.
And like I said, that was just the main thing with all the signs getting around. We were throwing stuff on and everything else. So if we had a trailer, we can load a whole bunch of barricades, sandbags, signs, whatever we need to. We can just hook onto that and go. Plus, I said the other thing, the other trailer isn't that heavy, so we can put a bunch of sandbags on and stuff like that when we need them. So I think, efficiency-wise, it would be tremendous and more of a safety factor because, like I said, the other trailer's been overloaded a couple times and it's showing its wear. So
Okay.
we had actually budgeted, I think, $7,000 for that, so it come in under budget. So
Okay.
How many places did you send bids?
5. There was Joe's, and I think they're actually working with one of the other places in town. And then with the 3 in Hillsborough, we sent one to Donahue, K4 Trailers, and then there was another one in Wichita. And Donahue responded back, they don't build those kind of trailers. They obviously appreciated sending to them. And then that's all we got back.
I was just thinking about Circle D and.
Yes, everybody in Hillsborough we contacted, and if I remember, it was Circle D, the one that doesn't do these kinds of trailers. They're more the stock trailers and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So,
Jost works with Hillsborough Industries.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. So, but like I said, so we sent them to all them and Donahue and then these other
Is
places.
this tilt bed or anything?
What's that?
It's just a tilt
No,
bed?
just flatbed, just for signs. Doesn't have ramps, whatever else. That's all it's going to be.
But it's only 12, 16 inches off the ground anyway, probably.
Well, we've got these, with these torsion axles, where it allows you to drop that a lot more, so it's a lot
Okay.
easier to get stuff on and
Okay,
off.
all right. Okay, do we want to act on this low bid from Jost Fabricating out of 5,556? I'll go ahead and make a motion on that to approve that for the trailer for Road and Bridge.
Second.
Moving second, all those in favor? Aye.
Okay.
Can we have one of those?
Here's the bids for our backhoe that we specified. We got 4 bids, John Deere, Cat, JCB, and Case. John Deere come in with a low bid, like $101,000, which we'd actually budgeted $130,000. Basically met all of our specifications as they all did. John Deere also specified they could get it to us about 60 days, where everybody else was anywhere from, could be as much as 4 months out, depending on how things worked. We had actually budgeted $130,000 for it. Even with the approval of this backhoe, that's still only going to put us at about $168,000 out of the budget, the approved budget of $445,000. Due to the amount of rock and everything else that we're at, I think we're going to be okay with the rest of the equipment. I've also been contacted about by the city of Florence. They might be interested in the New Holland. It would work out good for them. They were looking to buy a new mini excavator, and I said, it's up to them. But I said, we could sell them, however that works. Sell that to them or whatever else. That would work for them too. So we could have that. But again, the benefits of this one here is it's the same. This loader is the same one we have now. We actually have forks and stuff like that for the front of them too. So they would work on either John Deere machine, and then so we would have that. Plus, it has the thumb on the end of there on the extendable. So with a tremendous amount of debris and stuff like that we have to remove the rest of this year, I could keep 2 of those busy for basically the end of the year.
So how does this play in with the one that blew the engine?
That's back up and running, and we've been using it too. So But like I said,
So
between.
we don't have a rental anymore?
We never did get a rental.
No.
They got it turned around fast enough that we were able to not use a rental. So, like I said, that gives us the 2 machines that we can work continuously. And again, with the approval of that still only puts us $168,000, or a little less than 40% of what was budgeted for equipment, obviously with the rock overruns. So,
Yeah, but you still have contracts to pay out of that.
what for?
On your rentals, your case, your graders and all that. That's coming out of your equipment, isn't it?
Which equipment?
Yeah, it comes out of that fund.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
but
where are we at then on?
Well, that's what I wanna know.
I mean, I thought that come out of the other budget, or what, that special budget?
All of these equipment purchases and the payments come out of a special equipment fund.
Oh, okay, that's what I was thinking, so,
That's why, I just wanna know where we're at.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd want to know where we're at before we flip the switch on that.
Okay, well, I can get back with you, I guess, on that, but,
How, is that 30-day bid or?
it should say on there, I don't think it'd be a problem either way, but, this is the last year of, what was it, I think we talked about for the one of the Volvo payments or something like
I
that,
think
along
that's-
with,
I think that's-
or another motor grader, so.
That's something.
Doesn't really say.
And like I said, the 101,000, I did call, and he said there are lease options available if you wanted to do that also, so.
Well, I can sure put budget information in your packet for next week if,
I think we probably need to look at that.
Let's look at it for next Monday and see. I think they'll hold their bid till Monday, I would think.
Oh, yeah, we deal with Johnny all the time, I'm sure it won't be a problem, so.
Get it laid out where you're exactly at on the
Sure,
budget.
sure, okay. Met with Kent and Randy last week, or they come down and looked at it. I called you about the concrete rubble that was actually crushed for as a sample up there off that 5677 project. And come down and look at it. That's a 2-inch minus, basically it's run through a 2-inch crusher, whatever you get out of that. We can actually have anything's crushed the way we want to. They're wanting to crush some for us now, but we don't have to agree to the crushing right now. We can find somebody else down the road, or maybe put it out to bid, say, hey, how much could you do this for? We could crush it later on this fall, this winter, when it's not as high priority, but I still think we would, it would behoove us to basically take, tell KDOT that we would take that concrete stuff that's up there for our use, because I think it's essentially it's free. It's just a matter of we have to crush it, or whether, how much we crush it or whatever else. But I mean, even the bigger stuff we can use for riprap and stuff like that too. So, like I said, I actually contacted Morris County too. I guess they actually have a screener, and just talked to them about maybe we could work out something with them too to come in and work with it. But a lot of issues with MSHA and stuff like that we'd have to deal with too. But anyway, I still think it behooves us to tell KDOT we would take that material, and
And we don't have an issue with where to store it
we can leave it right there.
at no cost.
Yep, no cost. They're piling on KDOT right away, and so it'd just be a matter of we'd have to go in there and we could crush it to whatever we want to, or crush it right there. They're gonna have 2 more projects down the road, another 3 mile next year, another 3 miles the following year, and they're gonna do the same thing. They're just gonna pile on KDOT mixing strip right away, and so, but,
I think, location wise, I mean, we're running trucks to quarry anyway, it's not gonna be any farther to go there.
essentially considering, especially the northern part of the county, if we're going from any of the other quarries, I mean, to say that transportation would be even all the way across the board, I mean, it's just a matter of where you have to go. But like I said, the other thing is, I feel this material is gonna be so much better than our rock, because it won't break down as much, it won't have as many fines to it, so.
It'd mostly be a base material.
We can crush it to whatever we want to. I mean, the other good thing about it doesn't have much dust in it or fines, so we could actually crush it down to the 1-inch minus or whatever else like we get in, and essentially it would be just like any other rock. So we
Just
could,
wouldn't be a KDOT approved.
well, essentially it still is. It's crushed concrete. It was approved when it went down.
Okay.
So, I mean, to say that it's material-wise, I think it's gonna be better than anything that we can find because it's, you know, it's the same rock, but it's just a matter of how cement with it now too, which would make it theoretically stronger. So, and like I said, less, I think it would deteriorate less and have less dust.
Do you have to pack any of that?
Just-
Just lay it the same way?
Same way. I mean, eventually it'll work its way in just like bigger rock. You can blade it the same way, whatever else. And, you know, maybe it comes down, the fact is, in some areas we put it down, put a layer of sand over there and mix it up, and, you know, it's not gonna be any different than rock. Essentially, it has the same rock in it, just it's crushed up to different size, so.
Do you know of anybody personally that we could call and say whether they've used it for top rock anywhere?
I can sure find out.
I mean, I'd like to call somebody and talk to them about it because I've heard that there's more windshields goes with this than anything.
Well, I mean,
So I'm
that-
just throwing it out and saying, you know,
I know Harvey County has used a lot of it.
The biggest thing is the fact is that to say that a lot of people haven't used it, and the fact is you don't get crushed concrete a lot. I mean, it's a rare thing to have come up on there, and I know when they did some patching down on 50, they had some over there and it disappeared too because they use it for the same thing. It can be used for, you know, your concrete, your dish lining and stuff like that too, rip wrap, whatever you want instead of shot rock. So.
Well, yeah, if you call Harvey County, because I did call them, and they were not impressed with it.
Really?
But, yeah, but if you'll call them,
Yeah,
just.
well, I'll find out what the issues are.
But yeah, I don't know how big they had it crushed or anything, but
Yeah,
they
yeah.
said they replaced more
the
tires.
size might make a bunch of difference.
Yeah, it might, so, but
Like I said,
anyways,
yeah, this downstairs is a 2-inch minus, so it's run through a 2-inch sieve, and whatever you get through a 2-inch sieve, that's what you get. But it would make great base material too, that's not a
It
problem.
looked like a good material as long as you can get the metal out of it, which
Yeah.
what you had didn't have any metal in it.
Yeah, well, like I said, they you know, I've got pictures, I've got a video of them running through the machine, and they have 2 separate operations to pull out the rebar in it, and everything I found, there was no rebar, so.
It's tough to judge because KDOT is notorious for letting some sit forever
Mhm.
and not crushing it.
Mhm.
It just sits alongside the road. Florence has got a pile over there that's been down there since they did the Florence interchange and things
Yeah.
down there, and it's never been touched, it just
Yeah.
sits there. I think a matter of 6-8 years ago, after they did Highway 50, I talked to some of the state people, and they said, oh, it's been there for 4 years. I said, yeah, it's just sitting there looking ugly.
Sure.
What are you gonna do with it? Well, finally, they come in and crush some,
Mhm.
and they finally got rid of it, but it took them like 6 to 8 years
Yeah.
to get rid of it.
The main reason that KDOT doesn't push that is simply because they don't deal much in that big rock. All they do is just, it's a place to store it. Where they would get into that would be emergency flooding, whatever else, but most of their stuff is done by contract. So, you know, concrete or asphalt or whatever else, they just have contractors do it. So they don't really have the facilities, whatever else, to use something like that either, so.
Might say to the commission that if it don't work out on top for a top rock or something like that, if you was to do Nighthawk, rebuild the base and do something like that in sections, whether you do so many miles a year or whatever, that might be a place to use that is for a base material too, so.
Yeah, sure.
Certainly take a large quantity.
Yeah, it would take a bunch, yeah. Mhm.
And like I said, it's there, but I can find out more with you know, what was going on and everything else, and like I said, as far as crushing, we can determine whatever we wanted to with it, so. Didn't know if any of you had had the chance to look at the gravel roads best practice video that we got from KAC that Norm Bowers put on. I thought it was an outstanding video telling you what the good practices are, what the bad practices are, and a lot of things that were on there are stuff that we've talked about getting back into. Obviously, getting the crown back in the roads, getting rid of potholes. One of the things he pushed was trying to mow it more often, which obviously we struggle with. We're just trying to get to that point. But I think that be a good video you have to look at. Just give us some idea, give you some idea of what we're looking at. So Tina has the webinar information. So.
I have it. I tried it down. It wouldn't download
It wouldn't
on my
down-
phone, so
Yeah,
I'll have to
yeah.
download it on the computer.
is that a video that would be beneficial for the road graders and so
Yeah,
on to
well,
watch as well?
yeah, I've got it planned. Yep. So I think there's a lot of things that are in there that.
Could be used as a training type video.
Yep.
too.
Yeah, I believe I did send that out to each of you.
Yeah.
To look at it.
We could come in here and watch it right here. too.
Sure.
Yeah.
Bring popcorn. So,
Anything else, Bryce?
I guess if it's allowed is I've had something come up that I guess I would like to have an executive session with the commission for 5 minutes to discuss.
Personnel?
Yes and no. I mean, it involves personnel, but it's an outside stuff then too. So,
It has to be about personnel.
well, I mean,
Directly.
it does affect the personnel based on what's going on. But,
I think that maybe you and I need to visit
okay,
outside the meeting and
Okay.
then we can figure out if
Sounds
it's
good.
appropriate for executive session or not.
okay.
Yeah.
We
Sounds good.
certainly want to run that by our county council.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so,
Okay.
and then hopefully we'll have that, the new position description back next week.
Okay, so I was gonna ask you,
Yep,
so I'm glad
yep.
you're working on
Nope,
it.
nope.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
other than that, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Bryce. Okay, is Janine available?
I'll go check.
She's around the corner.
You're up.
Morning.
Come
There,
Right
right here. Okey dokey. How are you today? Enjoying the weather.
Yeah. Well,
And you guys? Go
whenever
good?
you're ready, go ahead.
Well, I don't know if you had a chance to look through the monthly reports.
Yes.
There's not anything really outstanding, other than the interest rates are doing a nosedive on us, so until
They're going up?
they're going down.
Oh,
The short term is up and everything longer is way down, so,
You don't go any longer than a year anyway, do you?
no. I think I've only gone a year, maybe once or twice, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any questions for me?
So, are you gonna shorten up your bids then?
I'm thinking so. I'm thinking so. And we do have one bank that pays above state rate on money market, so I'm gonna not move much out of there, so.
No, if you've got money market that pays above the state rate, you better leave.
That's my thinking too, so.
Right. Commission have any questions of Janine? Got quite a bit of information there. Breakdown of balances, where it's all located, the balances, pledged amounts. Seems to be all in order from what I've seen.
not having any periods of skip and not covered right with,
No, I had a bank that was figuring, okay, they were using the balance instead of the market balance, and so we got that worked out. And just purely looked at the information backwards, so.
and I don't know really what I'm speaking about there when I'm talking about what the auditor wrote us up on there a couple
Yeah,
years ago.
Lapsing.
Lapse and pledges, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
so far it's been going right.
So is there,
very well.
on the pledging, is there more than one person that reviews that?
No,
Would it be wise to have dual
well,
responsibility on that? Just, I mean,
well, it's all out there.
things
It's
can
all-
slip, you know, they can, I know.
It's all out there, you know, if someone wanted to look at it, so.
But I mean, if you had
Kathy.
another, you know, department head, assistant treasurer, whatever, dual controls are always good in the day and age that we live. Just having another set of eyes on it.
Kathy does a good job of watching the CDs and the end dates and the amounts that are being bid, so. So partially. So,
Is that something we should look at as a policy?
Well, I think that she is an elected official, and I think she can run her department the way she sees fit. I think we need to stop right there and leave her run her department. That's what I think is the appropriate way to go on this case.
We'll take that under advisement and see what we can work out.
Thank you.
It's just a recommendation.
It may be, but when we've had health problems, we have covered issues, so we've got to have a plan to do something.
I think that's her.
Well, it's the county's money, and I think we're concerned about the county's money, so.
I understand that, but you could apply that to any department that there is that has elected officials, and we have to give them all the same respect.
Well, and the county does have some internal controls set up, and that is recommended by the auditor. And so if this is an area that may be lacking in internal controls, that might be a good question for your new auditor to see if they have a recommendation. So,
They seem to be pleased with the way we were doing things, so.
Okay. Thank you, Jenny.
Yeah,
Thank you.
hope everything else runs as smooth.
Okay, go ahead, Diane.
Okay, so I wanted to elaborate a little bit on what Randy did last Monday. He brought up a concern that he had as far as where the county wants to go for future wind turbines. And honestly, it caught me a little bit off guard. And in part because I said it was too little too late, but I have since found out that that is probably not the case. It's not too little and it's not too late. So I had done some research and study this week, and I had talked to, well, my personal attorney and so on and so forth, and found out that the ball is still in our court as far as the future. So I want to thank you, Randy, for bringing that up.
Yeah.
And I will also say that, again, I want to thank you for being so kind to me last Monday. That still has me a little bit shaken.
Suspicious.
Yeah, no, well, shaken, I'm gonna say, but anyway. So, in so much as what I have done was read a whole lot of stuff, talked to a lot of people and so on and so forth. And what I've learned is the appropriate thing to do if you're sincere with your concerns, and I'm assuming that you were, you sounded very sincere to me. And I know I've always expressed concerns, and you had recommended that maybe send something back to planning and zoning and maybe rethink.
That's
some
one possible
things.
way. There's
Yes.
a couple of ways.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, anyway, in the research that I've done was I found out that we had a moratorium made up several months back from Pat Hughes. Well, when the first project through Expedition came out, and the commission chose not to sign it. Well, that moratorium can be signed now, and the way to do it, as I understand through talking to attorneys, is, or my attorney, is to place the moratorium on for several months, to send our concerns back to planning and zoning, get things set up the way the county visions the future to be, and then we can set the stage as to what we want for the future. That would be the appropriate thing. With the fact that we know that there are leases out there being signed or have been signed, anybody could come anytime and apply for a CUP. And at that point, then we could not stop it. So I guess what I wanted to discuss with the commission is at this time, and I do have a copy here of the moratorium that Pat made up for us at that time, and it's beautiful. It applies to absolutely a lot of things you said, my concerns as well, and to see if maybe we could go ahead and sign the moratorium, take the time, send it back to planning and zoning, do what we want to do for the future.
I thank you for researching that and looking at that. My only concern is the way I understood the moratoriums is, you know, if we set 6 to 9 months or whatever, we have that done by that time so that you don't violate your moratorium.
Well,
That's
this actually says that we can expand it if we need more time.
Okay.
So we wouldn't be limited. So I mean, we could start off with 3 months, we could start off with 6, whatever. And if we need more time, it does say that it can be, well, right here it says this moratorium may be extended for additional periods provided Marion County Board of County Commissioners has determined the process review and planning regulations that we need more time. So we wouldn't be boxed into any amount of time.
The only thing I would advises, I'd like to see both our legal counsel and Pat just take a quick look at it, make sure that that's what we say we're wanting to do. It would be acceptable with the practice, and give us what we have to do within that time frame in order to do that, whether that means just the planning commission look at it, whether that means we take it to the public vote or as an advisory vote.
Well, this has nothing to do with that, but I will also tell you that I did cover my base a little bit on this more because of Pat making this up. I did send Pat an email this morning, and I had presented to him that my plan was to bring this before the commission, that you had expressed some concerns, and knowing that I certainly have concerns, especially with the public health and welfare of the people going forward and the future of the county. And I asked Pat if he had any concerns at all or issues with this resolution that he had prepared for us, presenting it and bringing it, and he responded to me saying, I have no problems with that. So,
well, thank you for your work on that. I just want to take a step that's the correct step. I don't want to be out of the limb. I want to be a correct step in what we do and take a look at. I think you have to have exactly what we want to accomplish for that moratorium that we set it. I mean, what we want to do, whether another wind farm can come to the south or to the north or.
well, this is just to set our planning and zoning regulations, or send it back and let them clarify or revise. It's not necessarily, you know,
But
I
it's
mean, that's.
you're
yeah.
gonna have to be very specific with planning and zoning on what you're requiring. You can't just go as planning and zoning and say, we need to look at this, there's some areas that may be gray. I think it's gonna have to be very, very specific.
I don't think so. I think at least we need to start the conversation. We need to start the wheels turning. I mean, if you're serious about doing it, if you're not, then
Yeah,
at
I
least
mean,
ways we know. I just wanted to
If
do
planning and
that.
zoning gets it back in their lap, they're gonna go, what do we do with it?
Well,
Did you guys want to schedule some time on on an agenda to discuss the specific things that you would want them to address, or to discuss this further or review with your attorney, or, I mean, if
Well, and I
did hear that
specifically
brought
said in
up.
my email this morning to Pat, because I don't want to spend any more money on it. We've already paid for this. I told him that, we've already paid for it. I don't, you know, since we already have one, if it's appropriate, and I'm sure if it was not appropriate, he would have said that. So personally, I would be opposed to spending any more money on attorney fees on something that ultimately may not happen. I mean, because he's not going to change this, he knows what I'm talking about. So, I mean, the thing was to bring it to the board to see if you had an interest in pursuing, because I took you very seriously on Monday, and so I thought, well,
The reason why is because we set the rules to open it up for the wind farms, and I think for the future, I think we can still set rules whether it's a future thing that we want out there or not. And that's what I'm.
yeah, and I would disagree with you on just a trifle bit there. We as a commission did not set the rules for the changes that they made in 2016. That was something that came right out of that board. That was
We
not
had to
done.
approve them.
You approved them, but
Correct.
you didn't set it. You didn't
No.
tell them what to do.
No.
They done it themselves
We
because I
approved it.
witnessed it. So, okay, so
Could a-
that's what I want to talk to you
Would a phone
about.
conference
so.
with Mr. Hughes be acceptable to the board to go over this, to see exactly what he has to say? I mean, I need to reread that, is what I need to do.
Okay, you want a copy of it?
Yeah.
Here it is.
And that way, but I'm tempted to have a video, or not just a phone conference call, don't have to be a person call, just a conference call to see, after I read this, to make sure that's where we want to go. I mean, that's something for me, just to get us clarified, like you said, Kent, that you want to know specifically some areas where we want to be.
Do you have no concerns with it at all, Kent, with the future of Marion? I mean, do you
With
have
the
any-
future Marion,
as far as wind turbine?
well, I mean, I'm sure that there's areas in there that probably could be tweaked. I'm not saying,
Okay.
I mean, my belief was we had a fairly strong document to start with, but there's no perfect documents.
Well, there
So-
is no perfect documents. My problem, and I would say, being the advocate that I am for the moratorium from the start, even up to this point, is the protections from the people were taken out of there before, and we need to start bringing those back. And that addresses the protection of the people. when we originally were gonna put it on. And going forward, I really think that we're doing a very disservice to the people if we don't address them. But if you're okay with them, then I brought the
Well, I mean,
information
I just
before you.
still
That's
feel
all
like
I'm
you're gonna
saying.
have to have spunk something specific to send to planning and zoning, so at least they'll have a line in the sand, or this is where we start,
Well,
you know.
there's a lot
So
of
should we
things, there's a lot
schedule
of
some time
things.
for you to discuss it?
There's a lot of things that you can, because they have like the old 31, they have the old 27, they have all kinds of things as far as reference. And they're all very knowledgeable and on them. And there's state ordinances, I mean, you always put a lot of faith in the boards and trust your people, and I would think that this would be no different.
I like your idea, just seeing, maybe even have the chairman of the board here when we do discuss it to, but I think we just gotta have some, the bottom line is, to me, is we don't know what this project down south is gonna do.
This is not, I'm not referring to it.
Well,
I'm talking
I
about
know,
the future.
I know. I'm just saying though, we have no idea that, right now, there's still people down there that don't have no idea what's gonna happen yet. I mean, you know, like Tampa knows, the Tampa area has an idea of what wind farms comes, goes, what's happening. There's people in my area right now that don't have a clue what kind of roads usage, what kind of things that's gonna go on. You know, there's people that's not involved, like there is some of the people that's against it already.
Okay, I'm totally confused
No,
now.
I'm
but
just
that's
saying that
okay.
there's,
I'm confused, I'm lost.
No, I'm just saying there's people that don't know what this project is gonna do.
Oh, I understand that. I will agree,
And
there's people
there's
that have
people
no
in Tampa
clue what
that-
they're getting involved in, I got that, but,
So that's why I'm saying that I think that maybe through this time period that we're talking about, maybe, I think there's people standing right there. I mean, the low ones, there's another one sitting there. I don't know who else is out there. Amy's sitting there. There's people that didn't know it till they come around. I don't guess they didn't even approach them because they didn't have enough ground maybe for a windmill. But they didn't know things was in our rules and regulations already. My goal is to get our rules and regulations out there to the public, because if we didn't do it the last time, I think we did, but people's gonna have to, I think, come aboard, and even if we send it to the Planning and Zoning Commission, they're gonna have to come in and participate in that kind of conversations, why either yay or nay, why they're against it or for it.
I guess I really did misunderstand what you said on Monday.
Well-
I guess, because I mean, you're kind of going off on something entirely different.
Who gives the, people give the Planning and Zoning Board what they feel. That's
I
how
understand that.
that's how it was set up before.
But we as a commission, I'm talking about the future.
Right.
And you're the one that brought it up, that you had concerns and that we should send it back. So all I did was took you at face value and at
Right.
your word and thought maybe you were sincere and wanted to proceed with that. And I just gave you a vehicle there to do it.
Mhm.
Now, all this other stuff that you're talking about doesn't play into what I'm talking about here.
There's,
But
like I said, there's other ways too, just to send it back to them without a moratorium.
that's true. And then somebody can apply for a CUP in the meantime and
Yeah,
then,
and
then all that's
that's
just
bringing
too
something
bad.
up that could happen, and so.
Yes, and I thought that's what you wanted to prevent, but I must have misunderstood, so.
No, I didn't. I think.
That's all
made
I
myself
have, was
very
I just
clear.
wanted to present that information for the consideration, that's all.
Paper seemed to put it out very well, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, we're a little early. I don't know if Joel's available.
I can check.
If not, we can take a break.
Okay. Okay, we're getting a quick call.
Shall we take 5 minutes then?
Sure.
Let's take a 5-minute break. Tell Joel Lindsay to be with us.
I told him we were taking a short break and that we would be back in 3 minutes, and then he walked back to his office. So, I didn't suppose he'll be here.
Serves the 5 minutes.
Yeah. He must have had a
Good, very good.
Okay, we're gonna reconvene. Joel, are you here with us?
Yeah, he's right there.
Come on in.
Come on in, Joel.
Hey, that's fine, I just wanted to see, can I meet with you sometime?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi there.
Hi. Alright. So I talked, am I going? Alright. So I talked the last time at the meeting here about a desk. Talked to NAVRADS, the people that do his desk. Looked at different options. The option I think is I'm presented to the commission for approval. It's there. The one from Navratz, the first page shows what their retail price is. The price that I've written below that is the quoted price for their, I guess, discount or whatever they provide to us. On the next page is a picture of it. And then the other is an Office Depot quote for the same desk. It's $30 more, but they send it to me. And I gotta put it all together. Somebody has to put it together. Navratz comes in and puts it together. It's a pretty nice desk from talking to them, and it would be a desk that would stay with that office. So that's what I'm requesting to have. It's got the front portion and then the left return on it. It's on there, it says right return, but that's not.
Fit in your office all right?
We'll see, I hope so. They measured it out, and it was the links that are on there, the 66 wide and on the desk, and then the return, the 48 width is about as long as I can have on
I think it was very nice.
it. It is very nice.
Hopefully it does fit an office. She's got a very small office.
Yeah.
Okay. We have some bids here. County Attorney's desk, low bid from Navratz, $2,045.35. Go ahead and make a motion to approve that.
Second.
Move in second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. What else you got for us, Joe?
And I'd also talk about Caitlin. She's our part-timer. For a 6-month raise, she's requesting.
Did you make a couple copies of the same thing there?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, okay.
It's just one page on it. I said at the last meeting, she's been taking on a lot more responsibilities, and so she's been there for a while. I think trying to keep her in her office is something that I would like to do just because of.
Okay, this is a salary change for Caitlin Christensen in the attorney's office, a 6-month raise from 10 to 10.25.
Is this any family?
It is Cheryl's daughter.
Do we have any policies on that?
Yes, we do. I mean, we do have a nepotism policy that says that you can't supervise a family member or that a family member, it's basically, I'd have to look at it, the exact wording, but that is allowed on a short-term basis, even as a supervisor if it's like on a temporary or.
Cheryl does not, not supervisor. It says they're working, but she's not.
She's under your direct supervision.
Right. Or Karen.
Well, it just brings up a point. I mean, we've got other departments and other things out here that we have to follow rules with them. And I'm just asking that question.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm lost. She's a relative to who?
Cheryl works there, it's her daughter.
Oh, it's one of your employees' daughter.
Correct.
That could be a problem, according to our policy.
Our policy allows that as long as they're not supervising each other. If you'd like, I can send out our policy to you in your next packet so that you can review that again.
I know I have it at home.
We've had other family members that work in the same department before. For instance, the transfer station has had father and son multiple times working over there, so.
But I think that under the new laws and so forth, counties are starting to get away from that. That would be the goal. At the other meetings and stuff that I'm a member of, that is something that they really frown upon. They have adjusted a lot of their policies. I'm just saying, for the protection of the county, that's kind of an old school thing that needs to really be looked at.
I know.
Is she temporary?
She's part-time.
She's part-time.
Rural counties do have that kind of ongoing issue.
I don't think because it's rural has anything to do with the law.
Well,
The way they're
I'm not,
changing
I
it.
just said that has been an issue in rural counties.
Yeah.
Well, I think Joel's the supervisor, and
Yeah, I mean,
so,
because Karen's the office manager and obviously the head of the department. They do work together, but she's not a Cheryl doesn't supervise Caitlin in any of that capacity. They work together and help each other, of course. They work in the same office together. There's no supervisor role. Cheryl's not responsible for what she does, more than any other employee would be that works in the same office. They work together, no issue with either of them. And I think what she's done in our office and how she works is just trying to keep her there because we have invested some time into her. She's learned. That's why I left her a little bit of a raise and she's been for 6 months.
You know, Joe, I really do appreciate what you're saying. I just have I will tell you, I do just have an issue with it. I really do. Just even going forward, I just think we're sending the wrong message. But I just want you to know how I feel about that particular situation. I don't know the people. I don't know the people at all. I'm just saying the fact that they're so closely related. I know there's fine lines and you can tweak the regulations any way you want, but it is what it is. And I do know that working in other boards and so on and so forth, that is a definite no-no for very valid reasons. But anyway, so I just want you to know that I didn't know that that's what it was originally, the close relationship there, but I just, I mean, I'm uncomfortable with it, that's all. So I'm just putting that out there, that's all.
thank you, Joel. I mean, like I said, if you stay on top of it, if anything happens, well, it needs to be handled quickly, decisively.
I mean, she was obviously hired before I got here.
Yeah.
But they work well together. She works well in the office. So there hasn't been any problems.
Good.
I've been great.
Anything else for us?
Nope, that's all I've got.
Okay.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Enjoy your new desk.
Thank you, for sure.
We do have a gap again. Unless Bud has showed up, which I doubt if he has.
No, I don't know. I named my kids. The old-fashioned names. I don't.
Usually we don't
I
have
don't
a
have
problem
that. Tina has it.
running early.
Oh, but I passed all that. I didn't keep a call.
Or give that a call and see if you can make
That was a
it earlier.
mistake.
Okay, well, rather than just sit here, we'll go ahead and take
Yeah,
another
I don't have.
10-minute recess.
Do you have the spelling of Caitlin? Is it K-A-T-L-I-N?
Okay, Bud, go ahead.
Okay, first of all, I was gonna have bids on chemicals, but I didn't get my bids back from everybody, so I'll do that at a later time. I was notified this morning that the contractor is ready for a walkthrough at the new office shop area at the transfer station. He'd like to do it this week if you guys are available. The engineer can't do it tomorrow, Tuesday, so he said Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, he's available. I do the walkthrough on the building if you guys are available.
Can you just shoot us a text or something?
Did you want to do that as a full board, or do you want to appoint someone out of the board to go and do that on behalf of the commission?
Otherwise, Tina's gonna have to be along.
It'll be well, no, it would be a special meeting, and we just have to do public notification for
However you
people.
guys want to do it.
Yeah, I mean, you're welcome to do it as a full board, but if you decide to do that, we'll do it as a special meeting.
I know I've got quite a few things going on. Would you be available, Randy?
Yes, yeah, I'm available, but the reason I said bring it to the board so that everybody has a chance if they want to.
I'd kind of like to see it. I haven't seen it,
That's
been
fine.
involved in anything,
Yeah.
but at some point I'd like to see it.
What days are you available, Diane?
Well, he said he's not available tomorrow. No, I'm not available on Friday. Actually, let's see.
Okay.
Okay, so, and I'm not available on Wednesday, but I would be probably on Thursday.
Okay.
That would be the only chance I'd have. I'm not sure if I can make it or not, but Thursday would probably be.
Thursday morning?
Huh?
Thursday morning, 8:30 or so?
And you'll have the engineer there with them to do the
Yeah, he'll be there.
walkthrough.
He'll be there and the contractor will be there.
Maybe you could confirm that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I can get back to you guys.
Okay.
Okay.
If you make sure you get back with me so that I can get the agenda.
I'll just, you want me to just contact you and you can contact
That'd be
them?
great.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll
that
just do
works
that.
best. Thank you.
I'll do that as soon as I get done here, so. The dirt pile down there at the transfer station, we're gonna move it out to the south shop for the landfill. Do you want us to move it with county equipment, or did you want to put it out to bid? I mean, we have time to move it if you want us to move it, and I think that's what we probably ought to do. My recommendation.
Take more than one truck.
Even if it took two, I think they have the extra ones available, Road and Bridge does.
They do.
It would just be a loader, and then I'd check the price on it, make sure. But even if it was just one, I have the help now to be able to take care of it. And even if it took 2 or 3 days to move it one
Well,
person.
I hate to tie into their trucks up, but
Right.
if they have one available,
Yeah, I think that's what we ought to do is
I'd
just,
say within the next 2 weeks, if he can line it up, I'd be good at any time, but to get it done as quickly
Yeah.
as possible.
if we can get it now while it's dry and get it out there and I'll go out and get a pad built for us to dump it on and burn up around it so it'll meet specifications for KDHE and then we can work it, get it cured out, get it moved, so. And then I'd like to be able to build a little shelter building for the tire cutter. Have a roof over it and just 2 sides, so if the northwest wind's blowing and we're cutting tires, we're not standing out in the bitter cold. I think we could do it ourselves with minimal cost, I don't know if we want to build it out of a wooden frame or a pipe frame. I'd like your guys' input on it, whether,
Do we know how the dirt is gonna feather out around there yet?
well, see, where it's designated is where it's set now.
Yeah, I know, but is the dirt not gonna feather that far
I don't
out?
think it'll feather that far because you've got the scale right there beside it. So I think that the dirt's gonna feather to the west more, not so much to the north. If it comes out, it'll just be right on the south side of the scale
I
there.
just wouldn't wanna build it and then they fill it in.
No, that's pretty much where it's gonna be. is-
Check with them, make sure that everything's okay for that, as far
Right.
as I'm concerned, that,
I'm
you're gonna
getting-
build it out as,
corrugated tin barn.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do, put a sloped roof on it, and put the corrugated tin on the roof and the sides, and that'll be, it'll be a good job.
I'm not a colored person, but colored is in, are we gonna try matching the,
Do we do
steel
that, or
of
you
the?
wanna just do the silver?
You don't quote that wrong, but, well, I mean, color of the building.
Right,
Well, if you just use regular strong barn, if you need to paint it, you can paint it, I guess.
right.
If not, just leave it.
I mean, with the 2 sides and the roof,
Just regular strong martini.
I would say just use that because that's gonna be the cheapest, I do believe. I mean, I can do whatever you guys want. If you
Yeah,
want it to
I'm just
match-
throwing it out there because I didn't want somebody to come back after it's done and say, well, why didn't you match the building?
Mhm. I understand.
Yeah.
That's
And I
somebody
can-
with way too much time on their hands.
I could,
Well, I'd match the building if it was me.
One thing
They
that,
cut that 10 exact to the, if you know the dimensions, to where there is absolutely no waste. So
one thing
cut
to
it-
think about,
Cut it
Bud,
56 inches or 36 inches.
you'll need to make sure that if there's a building permit required, check
Right.
with the city to make
yeah,
sure.
I know. I need to
Okay.
check on that, yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Total size 10 or 10?
I think it's 20 by 24.
Oh,
That gives us room for tires to be in, you know, once we cut them. And the length of the machine is, oh, I'm thinking it's like 17 foot or 18 foot. I can't remember how long the machine is. I measured it and I was getting prices and stuff, you know, for 20 by 24. That just gives us room. If I need to cut it down, I can, but I just, you know, don't want to make it too skimpy so we can't move around in there, you know.
are you gonna use gable rafters then? Gable?
No, we're just gonna pitch it, slope it from one end to the other, is what we were planning on,
Okay.
you know. Have, what, 6-inch foot fall from one end to the other in a 24-foot span?
I think it would look better if you tried to match the existing building.
All right,
It might look a little bit like hodgepodge if we start,
I
I
understand.
mean, we got so much invested in it. It would be
Yes.
nice if the finished product looked nice.
The new building should be, the big building should match the older building in color. Yeah, so,
Yeah, all of those two will match the colors, so.
Might check with
Okay.
Cody to see if there was any scrap left from building that building too, for
Yeah.
pieces of it, or
Yeah.
some corners or something.
I don't know if there
It's
was
piled
any-
up down there at my building. so
Right.
What was left over.
Right, I can
That would
check
match
and
the
see.
color too, if you want to check with Cody.
Yeah.
you got a 20-foot span, Bud, what do you plan on using for string if you don't have a truss rafter? Are you gonna do it with pipe?
Well, I was gonna get prices on pipe and wood to see which one was gonna be the best to use. I mean, we put the span across there, you know, with rafters. 20-foot wide, it oughta, I mean, I can build it however you want.
Right.
If you want rafters, we could build
Well,
those.
I understand, I'm just
Right.
saying, I don't want
No, no.
to see the
No,
sag.
no, I don't
20
want,
foot
I don't want to
is
say,
a
either, you
span.
know, I just,
Yeah.
I haven't really thought that far ahead
See,
yet.
I was thinking a little lure building, so I wasn't thinking 20-foot span when you said
Right.
that.
Right, well, it has to be about that size to be able to work around in there safely and stuff, you know, with the machine and stuff.
You said it was just enclosed on two sides?
Yeah, the
so it
north
wouldn't
and
be
the
a
west
wind-
side.
Wouldn't be a wind tunnel or something that would take off?
Yeah, shouldn't,
Yeah,
yeah,
very true.
it shouldn't, but I can kind of get a plan put together and bring it to you guys.
Yeah, why don't you?
Get a
So
price
look at
and
it. Yeah,
tell you
do
what
that.
it's gonna be. I just
Okay.
wanted to see if it was something I
Right.
could put together and bring to you
Okay.
to see if that was possible. So,
Yeah.
okay. All right, well, that's all I have for now then, so I'll get back with you on the Thursday meeting.
How's the spraying going?
It's going good.
We have the truck out doing that?
Oh yeah, when it's not too windy. So, yep, we're getting all kinds of complaints about Sarisa and Johnson grass in our ditches, and we're going out and hitting them hot and heavy. Hopefully the musk thistle season's over, but there's a lot of rosettes that are still growing out there.
So is there a herbicide that's effective on this Sarisa anymore?
Oh yeah, Escort XB or the Remedy.
Because they're always talking now about doing fall burns and all kinds of things like
Yeah,
that.
I'm still not sold
May
on
work,
that.
may not.
I'm still not sold on that fall burning because if you get into a dry winter and stuff and dry spring, you're not gonna have anything out in them pastures. But K-State still says that it's working on it, you know, and they're experimenting more and more all the time with it. I haven't had anybody do it here in Marion County yet, but I've had people want to do it. Just
Are you talking about Sarisa, are we gonna have to spray any private land?
no, everybody's pretty much taking care of all of theirs. We just had the one land that we had to go out and take care of musk thistle on.
Yeah. Because I'd got a complaint from a landowner that the neighbor has Sarisa really bad.
Well, they need to let me know so I can check it out and get on them. I mean, so far I haven't had anybody.
Oh, okay, I thought maybe he had. Well, I'll check with him.
no, if you know somebody, then just call me and
Yeah.
stop by, give me their name, and I'll go check it out, and we'll get them.
I know a lot of these CRP acres that have come out from under contracts
Right.
and aren't being maintained,
Mhm.
just get everything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's terrible, especially when people let it go. It spreads so fast, you know. I mean, that's one reason it was planted, because it was a quick ground cover. But then they didn't realize that it was going to become a problem later on. And then, I mean, the deer and the birds can spread it just about as fast as it can spread itself. So that's why if you go out in your pasture and you see it, and you got a little spot here and here and here, you know, something walked through there that had ate it. So, and then it doesn't take long for it to take over that whole section. So, and the Johnson grass, we're using plateau on that. That doesn't kill any of the native grass around it, just kills the Johnson grass a lot.
Even for next year too? I mean, you spray it for this year and it kills it, but what about next year?
If what we spray now is killing the rhizomes in the plant. If there's seeds in the ground, we have to respray it for next year. This does not have any residual on it. So that's, but not, like I said, the nice thing about it is that everybody who's got Johnson grass in their pastures are coming in and picking it up from us, because it doesn't kill. If you spray the glyphosate, you know, it kills everything that it touches. And you could spray a 10-foot area around and kill it, where if you just spray the Johnson grass, when it dies out, that's all you got is bare ground where the Johnson grass was.
Are we a little late doing it this time of
Oh,
year?
no.
But there's seeds in the heads, which is the reason why I'm asking that.
You're going to kill the plant so it doesn't resprout out of that plant. I mean, the seeds are, you know, you just keep spraying, because you can spray it up until it dies out for the season. So, and it's still effective. The plateau is. Yeah, we're trying to get a hold of it. And like I said, anybody I've sent letters to on the Johnson grass and the cerise, they're wanting to get a hold of it. So, and we're in pretty good shape with our chemicals on hand for that. So, anyway,
Anything else?
I don't have anything. Unless anybody else does, and I'll get back with you on this information, and I'll get something put together for the
Okay, thank you very much for
little
that.
shed thing. So, thank you.
Thank you, Bud.
Okay. David, Arterberry here?
I don't see him yet. I did want to just ask the commission, you know, the fair starts, is this week. And in the past, the commission has done the parade on Wednesday. We haven't done it for a couple of years. I didn't know if the commissioners want to do that this year. And I believe there's a commissioner's cookie jar, so I just wanted to make sure.
That's on Thursday,
I'd have to check the schedule.
Thursday or Friday?
They've changed.
I thought it was
Usually on
Wednesday.
Wednesday, but
Is it?
Yeah, it's usually on Wednesday, but.
I
same
know
night as
we
parade.
got something from Extension on it.
Yeah.
Okay. They sent you something directly, or?
Extension did send something out, I just can't remember which day it said.
Okay. Well, I just didn't know if you are interested in going in the parade, or if we just skip that again this year.
Last year, the candidates were in it, right, Dave?
Haven't been for several years.
Had a very popular dunking booth a few years ago.
Were you in that, Randy?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Well, I tell you what, if it had been like last week, we'd all been there.
Yeah, it would have been relaxing, wouldn't it?
Relaxing.
Yeah.
Okay, we're waiting on Mr. Arterberry, bond counsel. He's scheduled for 10:45, so we'll probably just go ahead and recess until 10:45, make sure he gets here, being he's coming in out
Yeah.
of Kansas City, I believe. Okay.
Okay.
So you guys gonna do the parade?
Excuse me.
Yeah, it's hard to know what to use.
David Arterberry, bond
Thank you
counsel, is
for
here with us to
info.
go over some issues that we are looking at with the transfer stations. David, we'll go ahead and allow you to start.
Okay, thank you. What I just handed out to you is a list of different options that counties have for financing transfer station projects. And actually, this list here is really similar to the lists that counties have for different options of financing jail projects. So I have the feeling if you went back and looked through the county records years ago, you'd see something very similar, but just titled jail financing options. So there are a variety of ways that you would have if you wanted to issue debt or do some sort of leasing for the transfer station. And just because you arrived at a decision to finance the jail with one of these methods doesn't mean that that's the same thing you would want to use to finance the transfer station. But basically, before I go into it, though, let me ask kind of a threshold question to you: is have you thought about if you do decide that you want to proceed with the project and issue some sort of financing for it, debt for it, how you would want to pay that back? Would you want to, and I think the options would be that you could use revenues from the transfer station that you receive, you could use property taxes, or you could do a sales tax. Have you thought about those three different options yet and which way you wanted to proceed?
I believe sales tax is sort of an issue here that probably they don't want to go.
Okay.
That's so far from what I've heard from the other two commissioners. I loved our plan. It worked great for our county, and it was over with and done before the projected date. And I still would vote for a sales tax, but it would have to be brought to a vote by our commission. But that's just my feelings because it worked so good, Dave, for us. So that's
okay.
Yeah.
Well, we can kind of go through the different options, including we can touch on the sales tax one. Just kind of working from the left to the right here. Up at the top under type of debt, what I've just shown is the general description of the kind of debt that could be issued for the project, and then below that are some of the sort of salient features of that different type of debt. For instance, where does it get repaid from? Whether or not an election is required, and kind of some other pros and cons, like related to the interest rate. The first option there you see is option one, which is general obligation bonds. If the county wanted to, you could go out and have an election, and if it was successful, then you could issue full faith and credit general obligation bonds of the county for the project. That would be, general obligation bonds are the lowest cost method of financing that the county would have. It would require an election if the amount of bonds that you're planning to issue would be over $300,000. And there is a restriction in the statute that says you can't issue debt for more than 3% of your total assessed valuation, which I don't think in this case that would be a problem. So that would be one option. Now, if you were to do this option, you could, if you wanted to, use any sort of tipping fees that you might get to help pay that debt. Ultimately, though, those bonds are backed by the county's full faith and credit, which would mean that you would have to, if the tipping fees weren't sufficient, you would have to levy property taxes or take money from other parts of your budget to make sure those bonds get paid. The interest rate on those bonds, if you were to sell them right now, I'd have to guess would probably be about 2 3/4% or so. The next option, options 2 and 3, option 2 is what you did for the jail, which is you went and received special legislation in Topeka to implement a special dedicated sales tax. That's a sales tax that the county keeps all of, and you use that sales tax to pay back bonds that were issued to build the jail. You can do the same thing with the transfer station. You would need to get the special legislation in Topeka, and you would need to have an election to implement the sales tax.
Dave, we do have the legislation. We did get that.
Oh, you did get it? Okay.
Yeah.
I was trying to remember where that was. Okay,
Yeah.
so you'd still have to have the election to implement the tax. If you were to do that, the tax, you could, I kind of did some calculations, and if you wanted to do, for $1.5 million project, if you were to implement a tax of about 0.2%, you could pay that debt off in about 10 years. Maybe even a little sooner than that.
You're saying 0.2?
Yeah, 0.2%. If you wanted to go a little bit lower tax, maybe down to 0.125%, that would probably take more like 15 years to pay the tax, to pay the debt off.
Okay, when you implement that, if he was to go to either one of those two figures,
Yeah.
does it raise the tax up to the whole percent next? You know, if we were setting at 8 or 7.5, would it go to?
I would need to look. I think you can raise it. I can't remember if it's in increments of 1/10 or 1/8%. So if you are already at 7.5, then it could raise it to 7.625, or it could raise it to 7.7%. Again, I need to find out if the increments that you can increase it are 1/8% or 1/10%.
I was just wondering how they collected if it was 8 and then you go to 8 point this.
Yeah, it's in whatever increment you approve, the voters approve, but there are minimum increments.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's another possibility. Again, just like the jail project. And now, in this case, if those sales tax should ever be insufficient to pay the bonds, then you would have to levy property taxes for them, just like with the jail. And again, with the jail, you never had to levy any property taxes. In fact, the tax was more than sufficient to pay the bonds off a lot sooner than expected. Option 3 is really just like option 2, except it removes the county's general obligation pledge from the issue. So in this case, all you're doing is pledging the sales tax revenue that comes in to pay off the bonds. The drawback to doing that is that the bonds don't sell as low of an interest rate, because purchasers of these bonds like to see that county backing to it, that full faith and credit. And because they don't sell at quite as low of an interest rate, the bonds would not pay off as quickly. It would take a little bit longer to pay off the bonds, because the interest rate's higher and the payments on the bonds would be higher. So that's option 2 and 3 both have to do with the sales tax, and they're real similar. It's just that option 3 just does not include the county's full faith and credit pledge. Options 4, 5, and 6 all move away from the sales tax and are really all just variations of lease financing. It might be possible for the county, instead of issuing general obligation bonds or bonds backed by a sales tax, to simply go out and do a lease for the building. And the lease can come in different forms. It could be as simple as option 6, which is a private placement lease, where you just go out and find maybe a local bank that would be interested in doing the financing for you, and you just enter into a lease purchase agreement with that bank, where they'll provide the funds to construct the facility. They'll then own the facility and lease it to you, and once you're done making the lease payments, then the facility becomes yours. That's sort of a simplified version of it. It's a little bit more complicated, but basically that's similar. It's a lease purchase agreement, so at the end of the lease you would own the building, but prior to then, if you ever decided that you weren't going to make the lease payment, the bank could come in then and take the building over and do whatever it needed to recoup its investment. If you wanted to pursue that, you wouldn't have to have an election, but you would have to go through a notice and protest period, where if, I can't remember if it's 60 days or what, but if during that protest period there was a petition filed, then you could face a decision of, do you want to then call an election to do the project. Another version of a lease is option 5, which is basically they're called certificates of participation, but they're just bonds backed by a lease. So it would be the same as doing option 6, but instead of receiving the financing from maybe a local bank or another bank in Kansas, you'd issue bonds, and the proceeds from the bonds would build the facility, and then you would just make lease payments to a trustee bank until those lease bonds are paid off. Option 4 is probably the most complicated of these options, and I know we talked about this when we were discussing the jail a number of years ago, but it's a public building commission. If the county wanted to, it could go out and create an entirely separate entity, a public building commission. And the public building commission could issue bonds, and the proceeds from that bond issue could be used to build the transfer station. The county would then enter into a lease agreement with the Public Building Commission to lease the transfer station from the Building Commission. So the lease payments that the county would make to the Public Building Commission would then go to make the payments that were due on the bonds. It seems kind of convoluted, but the main benefit of that kind of structure is that the county's commitment to make those lease payments is absolute and unconditional for as long as the lease is outstanding. In other words, with these other leases, you would have the right, if you wanted to in any year walk away from the lease and turn the building back over to the bank. With the Public Building Commission, your obligation to make the lease payments to the Building Commission is almost like a general obligation pledge, where you don't have the ability to walk away from it. If you did walk away from it, you'd legally be in default and you could get sued. So it's just a little bit, it seems sort of nuanced, but the difference is that extra commitment, that ability to not walk away from the lease, is viewed by investors as a very strong pledge, almost as strong as a general obligation bond issue. And as a result of it, would get a better interest rate than other types of leases. So those are kind of the different options you'd have. Option 1 is just a pure, simple general obligation bond issue. Options 2 and 3 involve the use of the sales tax. And options 4, 5, and 6 all involve some sort of lease financing. With the lease financing, again, you could use if you wanted to, you could use any fees you get from the transfer station to help pay the debt, but ultimately, those would be secured by your ability to generate property taxes.
Even with the Public Building Commission, you said that, and we did a lot of thinking about that at that time back then to see if that was a good way. But they still are under a protest period, even under Public Building Commission, if the commission agrees to do something with the Public Building Commission.
Yeah.
Still under protest.
In order to, did we go to the steps of creating a public building?
No, we didn't.
Okay.
No, we just went through, we just seen the steps and stuff like that, and we never did.
Okay, that's right. And in order to, what you'd have to do is you'd have to create the Public Building Commission. In order to do that, that's when you have to go through the notice and protest period.
Under the general obligation bonds and sales tax, sales revenue bonds, what do you see out there in the market as far as on a lease being able to get a longer term maturity?
You mean something more like, well, with the general obligation bond, you could go 20, 25 years.
Right. We know that. I'm talking
about
about leases
with
where
a lease,
normally we've seen shorter terms on lease purchases.
Yeah, I would think if lease purchases would get difficult to do if you're going probably over 15 years. So for something of this size.
Oh, I didn't think it can go that long.
I think we could probably do a 15-year issue, but I wouldn't want to say that you could do longer than that.
Right.
And actually, on lease purchase agreements, the other thing that I would probably want to do too is, before we pursued any of these options, I probably want to maybe talk to some of the banks that I know that we work with that do this kind of financing, because this is a little different than a courthouse or an ambulance or a fire truck or something like that. I think, I guess could there be environmental issues with a transfer station? That I think sometimes, if ever there's concern about environmental issues, that sort of shies away. Or some of the people that normally would be interested in doing a lease purchase agreement might be a little concerned if there was any kind of environmental questions. So I don't know enough about how transfer stations work, but it'd be something I'd want to educate myself a little bit.
So what
on.
you're saying is, normally when we do a lease purchase on a piece of equipment or something, it pretty much stays in the county. If we went that direction, we may have to look regional.
Yeah, exactly. There's if there wasn't a bank locally that would be willing to do it, we'd have to look to see if there might be some other banks to do it. But we'd probably try locally first to see if there was. That's if you went like with option 6. And quite frankly, at $1.5 million, I know that's what Tina was saying approximately the project cost was. Options 4 and 5, which involve bonds or leaseback bonds, the expense, there's some expenses associated with doing that to start to add up. Doing a GO bond issue of that size, you can keep your expenses down pretty well, but doing a more complicated leaseback bond issue of that size, the expenses start to pile up on you. So I think if you were to want to do a lease, we would want to look at probably option 6 first. And if that wasn't, we couldn't get a good rate or find a good buyer there, then maybe look at 4 or 5.
I have probably a very stupid question.
Oh.
But do we have the option of borrowing from ourselves and paying back if we have funds available, and certainly why not, certain like a risk management fund or something like that, could we borrow from ourselves and then pay ourselves back, or is that not an option?
No, I think, I don't see why that wouldn't be. I mean, you just have to make sure that you're not draining your fund balances down so low that you could, create some problems in your operations. And I think you'd also want to make sure that, going forward, that there was that commitment. Although you can't bind future commissions to do something, you want to make sure that there was that commitment to actually make the repayment. So 5 or 10 years down the road, if it's not been paid back, there might not be a future commission that says, oh, we don't need to do this anymore.
But it is an option.
But I don't
It
see.
needs to be structured probably pretty, I don't know, probably needs to be structured pretty secure or something like that.
I
We
mean.
save a lot of money by doing that as far as interest and fees and things like that, am I right?
Yeah, if you have the ability to internally finance it, honestly, I'm not sure what sort of documentation you would need to do that. I mean, you probably have the legal ability, just if the money's available, the money's not restricted for other purposes, just to use it to build the transfer station, and then going forward, have, repay whatever source paid that initially, repay it back.
Would we have to determine out of what funds we would pay it back, or just pay it back? Well, I guess we'd have to find that out, huh?
Yeah, I mean,
Well, that'd be a good question of Scott, maybe.
I haven't met you
You
yet.
wanna-
I talked to you on the phone.
Scott Lloyd.
oh, okay, Scott, how are you? Oh, sure.
The way that I've seen this happen is 2 ways. That's why maybe she asked, what we were talking about this the other day, is you can actually go through, and you see it a lot in cities, if they have surpluses in their utilities, sometimes if they're not getting a lot of interest from the bank or something, they might borrow from themselves.
Yeah.
And a couple of them I saw in that case, you have to go through, I think, the whole process, just like you were getting bonds, if you wanted to officially tie it down.
Yeah.
Okay? But what we were talking about is we have about roughly $4 million in the capital improvement fund, which is general fund money. So in the general fund setting, they probably could just borrow from that, because there's no binding resolution that says that $4 million has to be used for roads, but that's what a prior commission had said, we want to set this money up to do road repairs. So if they have $4 million there and they wanted to borrow $1 million, they could pay themselves back and interest and all that, and not have to go through those extra costs of going through a borrowing structure outside and so that's something we just talked about.
Yeah, no, I think that would.
I think that would work. It's just, some people, I think, would have a concern, well, if you're gonna take the 1 million and put it on the transfer station, what happens to the roads? You know, is that 1 million ever gonna be really paid back
Yeah.
or not? And that's the things we kind of talked about.
Yeah, so similar kind of what we talked about here. You need, if you are gonna do it, then I think there needs to be some understanding that going forward, you've got a plan to do it, but there's no guarantee that a future commission might not change their mind and do something different.
Transparency, I guess, would be an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're right, if you did want to formalize it, I have seen situations where a city will issue bonds and they'll buy their own bonds.
That's right.
And if you did want to do something like that, where you formalize it like that, I think you'd have to go to a vote
Yeah, you do.
to be able to issue those
That's my
bonds in the
understanding.
first place.
It's kind of the funny thing about that, I was only probably about 28 years old when I first saw it, and I go, they borrowed from themselves. I couldn't figure this out.
Yeah.
I never had seen it before, but it's a way of borrowing if you got enough funds that it doesn't cost you as much in interest rates, because the interest rates back when I was 28 and now 58 is a lot different.
A little different.
Yeah. One question I had while you were here, if it's, can I speak?
Go ahead, Scott.
Okay.
Yeah, interject.
This is something you commissioners might think about. I thought about this over the weekend. The assessed value has went up significantly, 3.8 million this year, maybe 4 million last year. And so what we have is a mill levy that will drop because of the assessed value increase, and the tax lid won't eat up that entire drop,
Yeah.
okay? So I wanted to wait and hear what you had to say today, but what it sounds like is option one here with GO bonds would have no tax lid tied to it. So, like we were talking the other day, what we did last year is we took that part of that extra and put it into a risk management fund, because in the tax lid it allows you to, if you have any kind of federal or state disasters or even local disasters, you can set aside a portion of the tax lid for reimburse or for money because you don't get reimbursed by FEMA a lot of times for 9 to 12 months. So that's what we did last year, $189,000. But I was thinking about over the weekend, since the GO bonds are not tied to the tax lid, you have the 228 that's tax lid money, and then that additional point to get up to where the mill levy's the same as last year. We had to add $189,000 last year to get there. In these GO bonds, you can actually, since they're not part of the tax lid, you could add that payment. If you wanted to fund it with general obligation bonds, you could add that payment to the tax lid and bring your mill levy up to the same amount. It's not going to be quite enough, but I don't think you're going to need that full amount. Like 1.5 million, I was just doing a little calculation. It's not perfect, but let's just say it's $100,000. $100,000 in your mill. What's 1 mil off top? 125,000.
No, 136, I think.
136,000. Okay, so you're like at 0.6, 0.7 mils. Okay, and doing 1.5 million, and that would be financing the whole 1.5 million. But you've got transfer fees that will pay part of that. So I think, looking at if the assessed value would stay in the same thing, you could keep this, yes, but you could keep the mill levy the same, use the part that's over and above to get you up to the same mill levy, and use that to finance whatever bonds you wanted to finance because they're not tied to the tax lid. So it's putting it in that one category, so the payment goes up. Let's say half of it's financed by transfer fees and half of it's financed by general obligation bonds. Okay, so that half that payment would be $50,000, and that's about what we're missing this year. And you could put that $50,000 in that line item, and the mill levy would stay the same, and the assessed value increase would pay for it. You see what I'm saying? And that's not a guarantee every year that would happen. But because then what would happen if, let's say, the assessed value was flat or went down, you'd still have to make that payment, and that payment would just make the mill levy, that go up. You see what I'm saying? I was thinking about that over the weekend, since I wanted to see what David said about the exemption, but that to me seems like that would be another way to finance it and use fees and like that first column. Or you could borrow from yourself. I mean, that other part of it, but that would be in some options.
Yeah,
I would think.
Yeah, and as Scott mentioned, option one does not count against the tax lid. Neither would option 2 or 3, because there would be a sales tax, and the sales tax would be sufficient to make the debt payments. Options 4, 5, and 6, at least that would count against your tax lid. So you need to make sure whatever, after you subtract out any fees that you get, whatever that incremental amount of money that you need to collect to make the lease payments is, you need to make sure that you have capacity under your tax lid to do that.
Appreciate the information.
There's a lot of.
Actually, I understand.
At least we have some, we were kind of feeling like maybe we didn't have very many alternatives. And so this certainly makes things look a little more realistic, feasible.
Right. And one last thing, if I could speak, back when we did the roads in 2001, which I don't know if you were a part of that, but you're younger than I think. We hit the debt limit. We were at the debt limit. We maxed out. Okay, so one thing going forward, we have some, like we have the roads, those are, and roads and bridges, those are expenses, and we have the transfer station. And so what this column 1 would do is use up some of your debt limit. If you did decide to go and do road work, you would not have that. What he was talking about, the Public Building Commission, that debt limit, whatever that was set up as, would not be against your so it does free up. Now, no one likes debt, but that's one thing too to think about. And using up, I know when we set that capital improvement fund up for roads, using up $1 million of that would be, to some people, probably a little stressful of using $1 million of that to do a transfer station when, in Word, it was to be used for roads. But that's just some comments that.
Commission, anything else?
Is it okay if I ask a question?
Sure.
If the commission decided to do a bond issue, what's the time frame as far as being able to turn something like that around so that we could have a ballot question timely? Because I would need that, fairly soon.
Yeah, a lot of times when we're asked that question, we turn to the county clerk and we say, how far in advance do you need to get your stuff in, your ducks in a row? And usually I think it's about 90 days,
Yeah,
isn't
that's
it?
exactly right, yes.
Yeah, so if you did want a whole election, it'd have to be at least 90 days from when you said go. And I think when I say when you said go, what I mean is you'd have a resolution in front of you to officially call the election. And that would take in itself a couple of weeks probably to prepare.
Okay.
And pushing it then.
Yeah, because.
Right, we would need, if you wanted to do that on the November ballot, we would need to, you all would need to be able to come to a consensus and decide to move forward fairly quickly.
Next 2 weeks.
And if you didn't want to put it on the November ballot, you could have a special election, but it would have to be more than 60 days away from the November date. So it would be pushing it back into January.
Well, I guess we can take that under advisement and see if we want to talk about it a little bit more starting next week. Because we'd have to come to a consensus like probably the next 2 weeks.
Why not just, we're on the subject right here, is what do you like about what Scott just said about using that appraised value going up? That bugs me. I mean, it has for a long time, but the trend is to somewhere at the peak.
I think we're within a year or two of the peak, unless, we have new infrastructure coming on. And I think it's also a hard sell with the public when you say you've got money's put away for our roads and now we're robbing it.
Yeah.
Especially this year. There might be a year maybe you could do that. I'm not sure you could this year.
There's no legal obligation to use that for roads?
The only legal, I'm not an attorney, but the only legal obligation I understand in the road part is there's a resolution, I believe is the proper terminology, that 80% of the sales tax goes to roads. So that 80% has to be used for roads, okay? So when this was set up back in 2001, what happened is 80%, that 80% figure, 2 mills came out of that, okay, just as a calculation, okay? 2 mills and put in the capital improvement fund. So we know for sure that was put in, and then there was some other with coal mix and some other things that was paid out of that 80%. So that whole 80% goes there. Then another 7 mills was taken out of the general fund and put into the capital improvement fund, and that 7 mills does not have a resolution tied to it to the best of my ability. It's more of like when it was set up that 7 mills will be put in there so that in a kind of like a 5-year rotation, there will be 2-inch overlays done. But you know, oil's changed quite a bit since 2001 with pricing and all that, so the cost of a mile got a lot more expensive, and so the money didn't go as far. So that's my understanding. I'm not an attorney, but the only binding resolution would be on the 80% of the sales tax that is supposed to be used for roads, and that was set up way even before me. So that would have been prior to 85, probably, or 86.
Kent, you brought up a question last time we discussed this, was about if you went to the number 6 option out there and had a private bank or something to where they maybe lock the interest in for 2 years or 3 years and then come up with a different interest rate. Does anything change under law that way then?
No, I mean, in terms of authorizing the lease and the steps you'd have to go through, the protest period, that would not change if you had something where the interest rate changed after a few years. And that would be something if you would want to look at, if you wanted to pursue, you know, option 6, again, would probably talk to the banks and see what they would be willing to offer. Would probably prefer not to have that because that exposes the county to interest rate risk in the future. But if that's the only option that you get presented to you, then you would want to talk about it and consider it. So, and we worked on something like that a few years ago with a county down in southwest Kansas where the local bank offered them a very attractive interest rate for the first 5 years. And in year 6, interest rate was scheduled to change, and fortunately interest rates had dropped and they refinanced at that time to a fixed low rate and avoided the future interest rate risk. But so it can be done.
I mean, can there, on those lease purchases, can there be limitations in the terms and conditions as far as, you know, interest rates there 2%, and 5 years down the road it's 8%. They can't go up.
They can't go. Yeah.
More than 2%.
Yeah.
There's some built-in protections.
Yeah. If there was that component that allowed the interest rate to change in the future, usually we would insist that there be some sort of limitations that in any year it couldn't go up more than this much. The rate couldn't go up more than this much, and it could never go up over this certain level.
Lifetime.
Yeah.
It's kind of like we talked the other day. They're probably going to be willing to be as flexible as possible with that because they, you know, that non-appropriation clause that's put in lease purchases, they're not going to want a transfer station.
Yeah.
So they're going to be as flexible as possible with your rate, interest rate, and workable, you know, solution to make it happen if they want to do it, I would think. Yeah. One thing that I just thought of too is, it's back to the mandates as part of the tax lid. And it may take an attorney, so the time is a factor here on this, so it probably wouldn't work, but there's nobody really in the state of Kansas that understands tax lid to the point of, that's in a position like legislature to say, you know, this is really what they meant, okay? Because there's nothing defined, okay? But here's something under the mandate one, that's one we talked about, this line 21 and 22, the one about the mandates. Since transfer station or the taking care of the trash in your county is a mandate, there may be something too that you could actually just even add that payment there. I mean, if it's not GO bonds, okay? Because that payment, I probably would want to get an AGO opinion on that. But since it's a mandate, and if it fell in those categories of, you know, whatever those dates are, and I can't remember off the top of my head, but it might, that payment, no matter what structure you used here, might be exempt from the tax lid because of the mandate that's put forth to take care of trash. I've never seen that, but Just sitting here thinking about that might be an option also.
Yeah, I don't know, I know there's that section in there that provides exemptions for, I know, public safety.
Right.
And I was kind of wondering how this might relate to that. And-
Publics, yeah, and that, it's not defined really either by legislator. Those three, I think counties are just kind of, public safety, emergency management, fire, all
Yeah.
that is. This one would be one right above that where it talks about if there's mandates that you as a county have, they can be exempt if they meet the criteria. So I don't know if it would or not, but I think there's some options here. Just looking at these, what David's told you, and then some other options.
Okay. Other questions, Commission?
Not on that, but don't adjourn. After we get out of this, I have somebody here in the audience that'd like to speak to us on the buildings too. So,
We'll do that under citizen concern.
yeah, the same, yeah. Well, he's.
Well, we appreciate the information. I think I myself feel a little bit better about it.
Well, I think, like I said earlier, there's, use the jail for one. One of these is not better than the other. It's really kind of what fits your needs best and what you all agree would be the best way to proceed.
Yeah, this is an awesome little sheet. I appreciate you putting this
Very
together.
helpful.
Very helpful, yeah.
Okay,
I want to ask one more time because
go ahead, Randy.
0.2%. Now, we had a half-cent, 0.5 on ours, and it was raising somewhere average around 45,000. 0.2% would drop that down to
Half of that.
half of that somewhere, 25, 30,000 a month. Is that?
Boy, how much, that seems kind of low. I thought I looked in the Department of Revenue's website, and I thought I saw that, I hope I wasn't looking at the wrong county, but I thought I saw that your 1 cent countywide generated about $1.67 million in 2017. In the whole year, and that was for the entire county. And some of that, because that tax isn't dedicated, you share that with the cities. But I thought that's what the Department of Revenue's website said. I don't know if that sounds right or.
That would be pretty close, because if you just took 50,000, you said a month,
Yeah.
times 12,
Oh,
it'd be
okay.
600.
I thought you were saying in the
Yeah,
whole
it'd
year.
be 600,000,
Okay.
and you
Okay.
compare 1.6 would be, it wouldn't be, and it may have increased some, but yeah, that wouldn't be, he was talking monthly. so-
Months, okay. No, I might not have heard that. My wife says sometimes I don't hear
Because
everything.
we look every month at what sales tax brought in, and so that's why I mentioned monthly.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think if it is,
About 50,000, 45.
Average, 45 to 50.
Pretty much.
so if that was, okay, so let's say 50,000 for a month,
At 0.5.
at 0.5, so 0.2 would be 40% of that, would be about 20,000 a year, which would be about 240.
Month now, I'm talking monthly.
Oh, yeah, 20,000 a month,
20,000 a month.
or 240,000 a year.
Which would be sufficient, if you're talking
Payments.
that 1.5 million, you're gonna pay that thing off in no time at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, our special half cent for the jail, it generated between 43 and 50,000 a month generally,
Okay.
so.
Okay. So yeah, I think that would be right then. $1.5 million project cost would generate a annual bond payment of about $190,000. So if you do the math, I think that
You're
would come
basing that
up.
on a 20-year?
On a 20-year, the payment would be about $115,000, which I'm coming up with would be about 1/10 of a cent.
I just caution after coming from cities where they go on 20 and 30-year loans.
Yeah.
It just seems like it ties the commission up forever.
I'm not in favor of that long.
Yeah, I'm not being in favor of that long term. The 10-year deal, when I come in as a commissioner, we paid it off in 2012 or whatever that was, the loan for the transfer station at that time. And so, the 10-year would be a maximum for me. That would be a maximum that I would be interested in.
Yeah, on something of this size, it would be difficult to go for longer than 20 years. if it was a general obligation bond issue, if it was option like 1 or 2, just because a lot of purchasers of bonds tend to like bigger principal amounts each year. And if you stretch the bond issue out too long, then the principal amounts that mature each year become very small, and it just isn't very attractive to investors. So at $1.5 million, I would really suggest that we not, unless you really felt strongly, I'd suggest you don't go past 20 years. And 10 or 15 would be, if you can afford it, that would definitely be preferable.
Anything else? Well, thank you for your time and information, David. That's very helpful. And Scott, thank you for being here to interject.
I learned a lot.
All right. That was our last agenda item for the morning, so we'll open it up to public comment. Public, anyone have anything?
You want him in the seat or you want him to sit?
Yeah, Cody Nelson's working with us, and he's calling me this week, and I want him to come to the commission. He has some ideas and things to help us with this building project, and so, Cody, you're not you.
Well, basically, I would just like to discuss the potential to work with the county on the next phase of the project on a construction management basis, where we would basically work with you guys to develop the budget and the cost of the project, and then into the construction phase on a cost plus with the GMP is what they call it in the construction management world and the commercial side of things. I don't know if that's a potential option or something you guys would be willing to explore. I think there's a lot of advantages with it. I know you guys, it's important to maintain a budget on this thing. That's one of the things that we can do with this delivery method is establish a accurate budget early on before we start construction and help maintain that through the construction phase of the project. So I just wanted to bring that up and see if you guys would be at least willing to sit down and discuss that in more detail as far as what it would look like from a contractual standpoint. I don't even know with the way that you guys are going to end up financing the project, whether that's even possible, but I just wanted to throw it out there.
We ever utilize
I've
that
never
type?
used nothing like this, and that's why I'd say I'd like the commission to hear what he has to say, maybe.
I know it's been done in other counties, but like I said, from the financing side of things, from the county standpoint, I don't know if it's possible or if it's even an option or something that you guys would consider.
What differentiates what you're proposing and having the engineering company take your role in that?
Well, what I can provide is more accurate costs up front, and I can help maintain that cost through the construction phase, as well as identify any potential savings up front or any high-risk items that may cost you unforeseen money down the road.
What kind of fees are associated with that, or how do you calculate?
So basically, the way a cost plus works is we would establish the cost of the project, whether that be through preliminary budgeting or through a phase where we actually solicit subcontractor bids, but we would establish the cost of the project, and then my fee would basically be a percentage of that cost, somewhere in the 5% range. And the GMP part of that contract is a guaranteed maximum price. So we would establish this project is not going to, reach, cost any more than this number. So anything in between that guaranteed max price and where it ends up coming in at, you guys save that money. If we go over that, it's out of my pocket as a contractor.
That's why it's new to me, and I just thought that we need to, I'm open to all ears on any projects that we do and to try saving money, and if the commission would like to get him on this.
So how does that affect your ability to bid as a company?
on the project?
Well, we wouldn't bid, we wouldn't bid it out. I would basically manage and perform the construction work from there on out. Is how that would work.
Would if you was to come, would you have a laid out plan to show us from start how that would work?
Yes, sir.
I just visited with him on the phone. He called me the other day and wanted to know what I thought about it. And I said, well, I'm not this. I mean, there's all three of us makes this decision, so that's why.
Well, from the general construction standpoint of the project, 95% of the cost comes from the subcontractors that work on the project. A very small portion of the cost of the project is actually from my end of the project. So, I think if we can work together side by side through the design phase and into the construction phase, I think that, we can help either minimize the cost of the project or save some money on the cost of the project.
So under this scenario, you'd also be you'd be like a daily foreman?
Well, we would have a job site superintendent dedicated to the project. And he would basically be charged to the project on an hourly basis. So whatever time he's spending on the project, he wouldn't be billed any more than that. It's all open book. You guys would see all the costs that go into the project from my standpoint, all the way, the construction permits, the cost of the plumbing work, electrical work, and all the way down the line. You guys would be able to see those bids when they come in and would be able to pick and choose which route you want to go and know that, we've got 3 or 4 bids in the plumbing side of things. We've got 3 or 4 bids in the electrical side of things, and then, kind of hand pick those bids and see those costs up front. It's completely open book contract.
Since I'm hearing just a little more, Cody, would it be best if we start a project that would be the point that we're already through with having...
So basically you would bring me in at some point when you guys think you're ready to move forward with a project, or that the design is at a level of completion that we can develop a budget from, and we would work on establishing that budget. There would be no cost incurred to you until we actually decide to move forward with the project and go to contract. So basically the pre-construction service from my end of things would be at no cost until we decide to move forward with the project.
So roughly on a $2 million project, at 5%, if my math is right, would be roughly about $100,000. Give or take.
Well, it would be slightly less than that because, all of my cost would typically be built into a normal bid of that kind of project. So it would be slightly less than that on a $2 million project. You're probably in the 1.85 range is the cost of the project. So we would end up being at the 2% side of things. So $75,000 to $100,000 somewhere in there.
You are an engineer?
I'm a construction manager. I'm not a licensed engineer. I would work alongside Call Valley, who you're already under contract for the design with. We wouldn't change anything there. I would just work alongside them to establish the budget and the construction timeline and those sorts of things.
Well, I think it's an interesting concept based on what we've seen from engineering estimates, which do nothing but continue to go up.
It's just something to look at.
It's a good delivery method to help control the cost when budget is a big concern, and as a complicated a project as this will be when we start construction. We're talking. I know that there's been talk about phasing this out into 2 different halves of the project. It gets kind of hairy and challenging, and we can identify a lot of things up front if we're working together before we ever bid the project.
Can I ask him a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but you said that if the cost of the project goes over the guaranteed part, that's on you.
Right,
It doesn't affect the cost to the county
correct.
at all.
And the.
You are
yeah,
there to make sure that it comes in
Right.
under that guarantee or
Right.
at that guarantee.
Right, and that's highly unlikely. You know, we establish that cost
Well,
up
yeah,
front, and
you're good at what
but
you
at least
do,
it gives you
probably.
guys some security that we're not gonna go over
So do you bond
this
yourself
price.
for that possibility?
Yes, we can provide payment and performance bond for the project under that level as well.
Okay.
Thank you, Coach.
Appreciate the information, because
Yep.
that's a new concept to us, thank you. Other public comments? Looks quiet, got your chance. Bud?
I just found out that the meeting is on for Thursday morning
What time?
at 8:30 at the transfer
8:30
station. Thursday morning, 8:30.
Transfer station?
Yep, down at the transfer station at the new building.
Can you send a reminder?
I'll second it.
Diane doesn't have that problem, this guy's too, so. Anybody else? Okay. I'll go ahead and make a motion and we adjourn.
Yeah.
Second.
Okay, move second, all in favor? Aye. Okay.